So, welcome to the latest edition of our Plugging Away podcast. My name's Francis Norman. I have the enormous pleasure of being the CEO, Managing Director here at CODA, the Centre of Decommissioning Australia. This is, I think, our 12th episode, 11th or 12th episode, and for this one, absolutely delighted to be joined by one of our company partners, and that's Centurion. They're going to talk to us about some of the work they've got going on, what their company is all about, and so forth. And in that capacity, I would really like to welcome Brett Phillips, who is the Subsea Manager for Centurion. Welcome, Brett. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Francis. Yeah, as you just said, Brett Phillips. I've now been with the Centurion Group for a little over a year. They took me on, and I started August last year to start up a subsea services business in Australia. Centurion do have that capability in the USA and the UK through prior acquisitions. Those companies been gone for sort of 10, 15 years each. And we've also I've got a couple of colleagues up in our Singapore office as well. Have been operating out there for about 6 years. So it was a branching out geographically of a type of service line. It's now been going for about 15 months. We've got a few projects now under our belt in country, and it's rapidly growing.
It's good
And
to hear.
and that sort of sits within some other business lines the Centurion do offer that have come through some legacy acquisitions. So the one that the most people do know is Jack's Winches in this space, and that was the legacy company of our Centurion Lifting Services. And then we do have some other water and modular accommodation businesses here in Australia as well.
So that's really interesting. The journey is always, every organisation we speak to has gone through a different evolution to get to where they are now. Yeah. So, do you want to expand a bit then on the sort of the services and offerings that you have across the life cycle, particularly with the decommissioning side, obviously?
Certainly. Centurion do operate in around 11 countries across 5 different regions, so it really does give us full global reach. We've got over 2,500 employees in total in our company. And even in that, if you break one of those regions down, is our Asia Pacific region. And in that, we have 8 different regional bases. 5 of them are actually here in Australia, and then 3 across Asia, where there's Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei. With that, we do have a strong local presence, I guess a local presence, as I mentioned, 5 different ones in Australia. So Western Australia alone, we've got Perth and Karratha. And then, of course, we've got a strong global backing when it comes to resources capability that we can pull in on as well. Across our service lines, I guess we've got quite an integrated approach. There is the subsea aspects that I probably will be focusing heavily on today and a little bit biased towards. But we also do, as I mentioned, there's from the Jack's Winches and other legacy sides of lifting. So we've got a lot of rental equipment, covers lifting, power, and so mobile plant equipment, as well as we can offer lifting inspections. And then the other primary ones we offer here in Australia are sort of on our water and wastewater treatment areas, as well as modular accommodation and camp services. Those 2 sides tend to be more focused around the onshore areas and the resources sectors, but we do cover across a lot of different industries, whether it's oil and gas resources, other critical minerals, and even into infrastructure as well. So yeah, we've got quite I guess I'll be biased, but down here in Perth, we've got a nice modern workshop that we've expanded in Welshpool, one of our facilities. From one of our other business lines is actually expanding and building a new premises as well down in Bibra Lake. So we've got quite a large capability in country as well when it comes to facilities as well as equipment.
That's a big footprint you've got, Ben. It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Very
A lot
impressive.
bigger than people. Yeah, thank you. A lot of people are bigger than people probably recognize. And it's usually the second thing after everyone says Centurion, and I have to say, no, not the transport company. And we go from there.
Yep. Very good. So you've been busy. Could you maybe talk us through some of your recent projects then?
So just in recent times, I guess we've been able to complete a range of different, mostly decommissioning projects. late last year, we supported a flow line removal scope down in Bass Strait, providing all the cutting tools that were part of actually one of the recovery tools too, that were part of the actual cutting and recovery of about 3 kilometers of flow line. Most of that was performed as like a firing line on the back deck of the vessel, where we had our shears in place with our personnel, ensuring that was completed successfully. One of our biggest projects, which I'm happy to get into a lot more detail on in recent times, is actually in Gulf of Thailand. We started that one early last year, and phase one ran for around about 14 months. And to date, I think it's still the biggest pipeline recovery scope that I'm aware of globally. In phase one alone, we recovered around 240 kilometers of pipeline. That's actually 64 different pipelines. For that, we actually supplied all the cutting and recovery equipment on 2 vessels. And then we were also, entrusted well with our customer and the end operator, and came back onto phase 2 this year, which was a bit smaller a scope. We completed that. And then down in Australia this year, we've done multiple campaigns, and they've probably been a little bit more focused around the similar sort of areas. So we've provided high pressure water jetting systems that get ROV operated to do some sort of both areas of seabed remediation and marine growth removal in association with then also moving a lot of material out in preparation for future decommissioning scope. So all of it's ROV operated. We've provided the full suite of back deck equipment, the equipment to go down there, and basically, as I say, it's we've removed marine growth off of platform legs, provided access at the base. So I guess there was a lot of years of combined aspects of marine growth, clumps of cement, conglomerated materials, etc., that then needed to be removed and provide access around the jacket legs for a future cutting operation. We're in the process of mobbing for that one in future. So there's some of the sort of, high level view areas of what we've been up to. We have a really strong equipment and personnel competency fleet to go with these, and hopefully we can get into a little bit more discussion in depth on some of these scopes as well as we continue, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
sure. Look, I guess the big one for me, and I do recall you talking about this one at an event earlier this year, that Gulf of Thailand work. We talk a lot as an industry about lessons learned and so forth. There must have been a lot of experience and a lot of lessons that you picked up through doing all of that, I imagine.
Yes, and it's one of those things that you learn along the way as well. So it began in March 2024. We had equipment suites, cutting and recovery suites on both 2 vessels. So the primary method of recovering a large array of those flow lines was a reverse S-lay method on a pipe lay barge. Then on the dive support vessel, a separate vessel, that was the one that was actually making the cuts and preparing the infield areas of flow line ready for the longer straight lengths to be recovered by the DLV, the pipe lay vessel. So in both situations, they were almost simultaneously. They were slightly offset. The DSV naturally started a little earlier, but we had combined teams on both boats, each running 24 hours a day. Each were extended campaigns, so we had quite a backlog. We had to have crew change backlog of people. And then it was the sheer volumes of cuts you're then talking about. And as you say, with lessons learned, the joys of, well, we call it joys, not really, but in the decommissioning world, you're talking with late life assets, the assets that have often transferred from owner to owner along the way. And the quality of the information that becomes available naturally diminishes over time, to the point where we were getting in field and things weren't quite the way that they were anticipated. So pipe thick, well, probably one of the worst was literally a wall thickness of pipe that was a lot thicker than what was anticipated. So that really tested some of the equipment, pushed it to its capabilities. It was actually a little bit beyond. So we had to react very quickly and bring in some, actually brought in some other equipment, larger sets of shears to perform that particular area of scope, and were then able to basically continue on. Also, just those there was those sorts of areas. There was another area which was one of those, be able to react quickly in field, was because we're also right getting on the capability of one set of our shears. We worked offshore and with the OEM of that equipment to actually come up with a whole new geometry blade of our shears, which have now, the OEMs now called them a CWC pruner blade. That changed geometry, particularly helped when they were trying to cut through with concrete weight coat. And instead of just sort of crushing and then shearing through, it actually started piercing beforehand. I don't believe we're the only ones out in the market now touting this, but at the same time, we have performed a crazy number of cuts with these sort of shears now. Like I say, I don't think there's anyone else on the planet that could come close to it. But and then that was tested across a full array of sizes, sort of starting from, that range from 6-inch through to 18-inch pipe, range of, as I say, different coatings on the top, different requirements coming in, and then that just led to, I guess us doing over 22,000 shear cuts and over 5,000 chops or cuts alone in phase one. And then in those sorts of quantities, as you say, what other lessons do you learn? We all know that you've got to have consumables and spares and philosophies and hand. Well, that did give us ability to actually really, understand in depth what sort of number of cuts each tool could do and get out of, e.g. a simple thing like a blade. A blade might sound straightforward, but I remember from where I used to be, we used to change a chop saw blade with every cut. If we're doing 5,000-6,000 cuts, that's a lot of blades to get offshore in a hurry. But we were able to actually figure that we could get quite accurately 40 to 50 cuts per blade. Some were going up to 80, some were a little bit less. We did find different blades to suit with different cutting scenarios. That usually came down to whether there was coating on the pipe or not. And so the type of coating I should specify. So e.g. if I had concrete coating on the outside, we had to make a chop saw cut with it. There's another reason behind that, was usually around potential pipes that had internal contamination. We do a chop saw cut, so it made overall less handling time. But in those situations, these diamond blades, we're using there. There's the tungsten carbide blades, we could get through steel pipe a lot faster at cut generally, and so forth. But then those quantities, let me rephrase, with the chop saws and those blades, knowing quite well how many cuts we could get from them allowed that sparing and consumables placement. So we could make sure we had enough out there for the upcoming sections of the campaign. And of course, these things come with a lead time, like anything and everything, sometimes 4 weeks, sometimes longer. We always made sure we had a nice pipeline of spares always coming through. So these are definitely lessons that you can say you learn. There's some of it you go in, you think you know a lot of it. And then of course, things will come up and surprise you along the way. And also, it's like anything, mate, we're in people business. The quality of your personnel out there also has a very big impact and a bearing on the performance that you can do. So once we found we're in a regular routine, it was an extended duration scope. I think in total it was almost 14 months long, phase one alone. We were able to get in quite a good groove with back-to-back personnel. People built up experience to the point where they basically knew inside out what they were doing, if you know what I mean. That did put us into a very, very good position when it came to phase two this year, which we've actually just completed as well. So it was a lot smaller scope for phase two. Maybe we performed a little bit too well in phase one. We learnt too much because our customer downplayed the number of days that were needed, and then we even performed better than that in the end, which everyone except for the day rate is good for, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But what it shows is the story that we hear so often in decom in particular, but in so many other industries as well, that repetition, the consistency, the having the crews who are who are doing this work over and over again, that's where you build your efficiencies. That's where you build your knowledge. And it's really where you learn, so that as you go forward, you get more and more consistent. And the safety, I imagine, goes with that as well. That, once folks are really comfortable in the work that they're doing, they know where the risks sit, they know what they need to avoid, and you just get a better performance from everybody through all of that.
So true, Francis. That is so true. And you see it all the time. It doesn't really matter, Phil, what area of work you're doing. But yeah, once you get a regular team working together, that consistency, everyone understands, the actual efficiencies improve dramatically. What we just hope for now is we've got that consistent level of work that enables those that to occur.
Well, you want the success breeds success, don't you? You want that. You want people to know, which is why, why we do what we do with these podcasts and with the webinars. We want to get the word out on these projects when they're successful, so that other people know who to talk to, and so you can do a bit of celebrating in among yourselves as well for a job well done. So, that's a remarkable volume, and just the numbers of cuts that you talked about there, and that, the length of pipelines. That's very significant. Uh, Certainly, a lot of the projects I talk to, a lot of the jurisdictions, you could take a zero off that total number, and you'd still be looking at a big project in a lot of places. So, 330 kilometers plus. What was it? 22,000 cuts or something, you said?
Yeah. And that was just phase one. So with the phase two approach, I think we're over 24,000 cuts now in total as well. So yeah, it's it's a considerable number. I think Australia we do here have something to learn from this. I guess we've got pipelines that are due to start coming out around 28, 29, I believe. And and that's the decent amount of pipelines right now. A lot of the decommissioning works we're doing are these isolated FPSO fields. It feels, excluding Bass Straits, I guess. But yeah, in the years to come, we've probably got a lot that we can learn in these areas. Everyone's always chasing efficiency, so hopefully we can continue to improve what we do as a collective group, and learn from these things, and then make it a lot more efficient process as we do go into
Yeah.
these areas too.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit more then about some of the other projects that you mentioned earlier on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Francis. In Australia now, we've completed a few projects. We're actually in the process of mobilising for the part two of one of those. But to date, two of the main projects we did during the year shared similar equipment spreads, although they were for quite different purposes, where we had a large range of high pressure water that was topside powered because it was a large pressure and volume. And then the ROV would use it subsea. So in one situation, it was for seabed remediation, where we were cutting up some, I guess, cutting up excess concrete that was around structures. And in the other situation, it was for both that and marine growth removal, in getting site access operation. We also utilized a range of our dredges. So our dredges can go onto an ROV, but in these situations, they're both independently deployed. ROV could bring it over, and that way we could remove the materials, the excess materials out of the way, because we need to get them a little bit further than just the ROV's distance away from where they were. And yeah, and another one of those, we had some other grab tool, crane operated grab tools that would also move large debris that we're moving. The latter one, in what we were doing, is basically in preparation for the Harriet platform removal. And now we're in the process of mobilizing again onto a customer's vessel in more this time a contingent method. We've hopefully done all the work that was needed in providing access it was actually going to be for the cutting tools that are going to cut off the jacket legs so they can be actually cut below the seabed line. But in the event that we've got some backfill, or there's some areas that were missed, actually I think they already know that there's one or two areas they want to take a little bit more off. We've got that equipment there to complete these jobs basically around Christmas of this year. So that's some things that we've and I have invested now locally, I guess, in some of that equipment to get us into position. We're also building up more equipment at the moment as well in anticipation of some similar scopes and future scopes into next year as well.
Awesome. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Um, so if we move on a little maybe and talk about some of the sort of the operating environment differences that you experience around the world. You know, I know you've been based here in Perth for a long, long time, Brett. You know, you know the world here, and you're working for a global business that's got operations in a whole bunch of different jurisdictions. Um, what do you see as the differentiators, if you like, from a regulatory, logistics, supply chain perspective, doing business here versus doing business elsewhere?
It's a great question, Francis. And I do find Australia a very unique place to work in for a number of those different reasons. It presents its own sets of challenges, particularly, I guess, new entrants, especially new entrants into this market that may not be quite as familiar with it. Starting off, we really do lead to doing a lot more preparation and pre-engineering than I found a lot of other regions do. As I continue to say, we've got a lot of unique challenges. So that upfront engineering work really does differ us, I think, because we've got so much more consequence if we get something wrong in field than sometimes other regions do. Um, Remoteness, we are an extremely remote location. We already know Perth's the most remote capital city in the world. And then we're going to go and work another 2,000 kilometers away right at the end of things as well. So there's also, what we would be one of the most heavily regulated regions, I reckon, out there that I've experienced. We've got I think we've got a regulator that has got a good, very strong safety ethic as well, which is great. But as a result, you've probably got there's some challenges there that each of us navigate along the way. But yeah, very strong on environmental safety and health and safety in country, which I think is great. I'll testament. I'm happy we operate like this way. But that does bring, I think I don't know, speaking of myself, working at a multinational, when we've brought expats out, it's often a little bit of a learning curve along these things. And and as a result, you've got to adjust the way that you work as well. So one of the key things I've always found when it comes to working in these environments, one is I guess the importance of that upfront testing and systems integration testing, ensuring you test the entire spread of equipment as make up as well to the actual use case scenario as possible. It's a lot easier to fix the teething bugs, and particularly, and I should back up on that. I guess my heavy focus has always been around remotely operated vehicles and work-class ROV equipment. So you enter a new sets of, it has its own sets of challenges as it is. You do these system integration tests. You make sure you're testing the cases you're going to be out there. You figure out the teething bugs, especially if you've designed some new equipment or modified equipment for specific uses. Those SRT activities usually pay for themselves over, orders of magnitude over later in potential delays otherwise. Sparing philosophies. As I mentioned, extremely remote location. You need to have a very robust sparing and consumables methodology, philosophy behind it. Competent personnel that are well trained with this equipment and ones that can think on the fly, because especially I found in decommissioning, things aren't necessary, and it actually doesn't matter. I should say that I've been in construction projects, etc. But decommissioning and IRM, whenever you're in those two areas, there's always things outside of the scope that you've been told that present themselves when you're doing work that changes. I guess changes how you can perform and do stuff. So the ability to think on the fly, the ability to make some adaptive changes. We spoke about that earlier in another project, but that is key to being able to continue to move forward. And I guess what I've always found when you're offshore, the key thing is to always get to the end objective. You've got a very big facility that we're all on board at somebody else's that's, got usually a very high day rate attached to it, or a significant day rate. And we're a very, very small portion of the total, the total project, but being able to basically keep things moving, getting our customers to their end objective safely and efficiently is always what's going to get you there. So I think those areas are very helpful. When I mentioned testing, sparing consumables, personnel, and make sure you've got good quality equipment that's robust to do the job. Another area that can trip us up often here, I find, or is different, it's unique in Australia, is actually often around lifting requirements. We are a very, I guess we have probably some of the most stringent lifting requirements that I've come across. And I know you can bring equipment in from other regions, and if you're not familiar with that, that can get you, that can cause issues to at certain times. So if you're not familiar with those things, definitely consider it before you come here.
But when I hear what you're describing there, I mean, some of those things, I imagine there are other places in the world where those similar learnings would be as valid. Certainly, if you're closer to where the equipment's sourced from, and I'm thinking here really North Sea, Gulf of Mexico. If you're close to where the equipment's sourced from, and you need a spare quickly, you can get it quickly. But some of the other locations, some of the other places, you were talking about Gulf of Thailand. I imagine Brazil, off Africa, things like that. That some of those would be actually really valuable, transferable insights and learnings when you're going into those places as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So that was the exact analogy I was thinking with some of the expats I used to work with. Gulf of Mexico for them on North Sea, they could easily get something on a supply boat or a chopper ride out to there in several hours. Yet they actually they use the analogy of when they would either be working in West Africa and Angola, PJ, it's very similar to Australia when it came to the remoteness. But we've got those added complexities, as I mentioned, too. That's not just one. You've got 2, 3, 4 on top. And even if you're in Perth, like you think you spend a week getting something on a plane, say, to get it to Perth, or 5 days to get it to Perth. Then it's got to jump on another plane. Hopefully, it's able to fit on that plane to Karratha. Otherwise, you're on a hot shot. And then you've still got to get on a supply boat if it's, unless it can actually fit onto a chopper. So almost doesn't, I find, and the supply, that element of getting spares offshore in a hurry, and you can perform miracles and get them, but you're so subject to constraints along the way. And if people aren't as familiar with those constraints, like I say, choppers, you're only going to be allowed to take 10 or 12 kilos on. Otherwise, if that spare part that you want is 80 kilos, you're waiting for a supply boat. That supply boat, their next supply boat might not be until after you're supposed to have finished your project.
Yeah.
So
you take plenty of spares with you. Yeah.
And really a good thought on that sparing philosophy, because you'll want to put in things that you otherwise may not have thought you needed as well. But you are right. We're not the only one that works in remote locations.
Yeah. Oh no, I wasn't implying you weren't the only ones that were doing that. It's just when you hear people talk through those, like you've just done there, how so many of them are. Some of them are highly contextual to us here, and as you say, are practically unique to Australia through the combination of different factors that we have, and then others are, part of that will apply somewhere else, and part of it will apply somewhere else. But I guess the end point there is that all of them apply here, not just some of them. Yeah. So we've got a lot of work coming up here now. We know we've got projects. We've got projects underway right now, but we also know we've got a whole bunch of new work coming up in the not that distant future. A year and a half into your role there, I imagine you're well along that path of preparing for all of that now. You talked a little when we started this conversation around how you're establishing the business here. Is there anything you want to add to that to sort of expand on the story?
I am in the process of acquiring more equipment, and that includes I'm getting some equipment built by our UK teams at the moment. I'm due to receive some of that, I think, later this year. It might slip into January. Building some equipment locally as well. So I guess the benefit of having that the global subsea side of Centurion, Some of the bigger kits, especially, they've just shared all the engineering drawings down here, so I can get that stuff locally fabricated and built up. Um, and and then there's some other stuff I'm procuring from other areas as well locally. So yeah, it's still building up the fleet of equipment. Centurion's with a 7 figures worth of capital expenditure behind this phase, and I've got more planned into next year as well, similar to that as well. So it's definitely a case of build the capability, both equipment, fleet, and personnel and competency. And another area that I'm bolstering up is local engineering support for ourselves as well. So I did do some of that relying on our overseas branches earlier in the year with some equipment we supplied. That was basically some environmental pipe plugs. It was a standard product of ours from our US team. And then I did also locally design and engineer up some small ROV installed tools as well. But yeah, moving forward, I think I'm not going to try and I think having a capability of local engineering support is critical when it comes to quick turn and fast reaction to offshore scopes, I've found.
So removing all that material and removing all that equipment and bringing it all out, I imagine you probably then spend a bit of time thinking about that sort of the reuse, recycling, circular economy piece on the back end of of the pipelines that you're removing and the tooling that you're using and so forth. Do you have any thoughts you wanna dive into on that?
So Centurions, I guess our whole business model is on a reuse model. So our core area is rental. So that works on that reuse model. It's key to reducing materials, reducing transport and life waste. On top of that, because own the assets and it's on a rental model and reuse model, we're maintaining a high standard of maintenance on our equipment to extend its asset life, and it just helps. Like, rather than somebody going on project buying something and it's then going to sit in a yard and turn into a pile of rust after years, and over and over. I think we've seen that plenty of times over the years in other areas. But yeah, our whole business model is around reuse, reduce, um, of components as well. So in addition to that, we also do try to endeavor to sort of modify and repurpose equipment to expand its capabilities as well. So again, instead of just going out and finding a new one or building a whole new one, we can modify, repurpose. Um, and then one of a key component, I think, and this is really a circular economy approach. Our UK team have actually developed over the years, and they've built it up to the point where it's a complete world-class ROV control system. And they actually took a graveyard asset that they were able to procure, and they completely stripped it and installed a new control system and basically made it up like a whole brand new world-class ROV, where it was they used, well, I say that was the world-class ROV and the tether management system, and then they've repurposed that and brought that to a refurbished unit, which they've on-sold to an end customer, which is ironically in the Asia Pacific region, and that system's been in use and operating for the last close to 2 years, almost. Since early last year. So
Yep,
yeah,
that's great.
that's I think so.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great reuse story. And with the I need to see it come to fruition again, but I do feel like there is a real strong market out there for that. Work-class ROVs and the way our industry has been probably for the last decade, it's been flat and there's been little investment in that area. And we're now just seeing a little bit more investment in some companies buying new fleets of new vehicles to go in to their vessels globally, and others in the process, because they're quite an aged asset when you think about it. And the key component on there is that control system. You think if you're driving a car that's like 10, 15 years old versus jumping in the car today and the technology difference, well, you've got these 2-ton, 4-ton world-class ROVs in water that you're trying to do work. And it's a very similar, I think, analogy to what they've got. The sensor payload that they can do, the functionality that they can perform and so forth, it is semi-prehistoric compared to what's coming out now. If you can, if you can save by grabbing what exists and what doesn't really need to change, particularly the frame and the call it the dumb parts of it, and you put a new set of brains into it and you make it really up to spec, and it is a cheaper means of doing it, and you've brought this thing into the 21st century. I think there's a market out there globally for it. Maybe not necessarily in so much down just in this corner of the world, but I think globally there is, and hopefully we see more of that over time as well.
Yeah. A lot of industries, and ours is one of them. There is a lot of waste, isn't there? There's a lot of the risk aversion, I guess, drives a behavior around, oh, I want new and shiny so that it takes away the risk when I'm doing the actual work or when I'm deploying it. But the reality is so much, as you're describing there, that with proper maintenance and proper rejuvenation, a lot of this technology can have a second or a third life as it goes forward, and drive down a bunch of the cost, and and in it that creeps into the supply chain. So that's a great story to hear. It really is. Thank you. So look, I think that probably more or less wraps it up from my side. Is there anything else you'd like to add in before we wind things up, Brett?
Not that jumps to my mind. Hopefully it was hopefully it's an in-depth, hopefully it's an insightful discussion for all out there. I guess we've got areas we can pull from all different regions and experience from all over the world to help into the local execution of scopes. We've got, our companies have been going for a long time, and hopefully people understand that. And it's filled with people that have got good, strong capabilities behind them as well, and bring a wealth of experience into what we're going to do. I think I'm very hopeful that we can bring a good value into Australia's supply chain for upcoming scopes. And I think, as I mentioned to you on that one, Francis, as well, I'm very passionate and patriotic, and really do want to see Australia do well. I think for a small country, we really do punch above our weight class in so many different areas. So yeah, I think it doesn't deviate in this industry at all. I think we set a very high standard for ourselves. We often, we do set it and we achieve it, and I think we do quite well overall.
Yeah, no, I would agree completely there, Brett. And when I look at some of the work that's going on here now, and the work that's being run from here now, in the decom space that we work in, some of that is bigger and unique relative to what others are doing around the world. We really are breaking new ground in a lot of areas. And examples like you were talking about there, the volume of cutting, pipeline removal that you've done, some of the volumes of flexibles and umbilicals that we're starting to see coming out. There's few places in the world coming close to that. So we've got some unique challenges, and those unique challenges really do help to build some unique capabilities and opportunities as well that we need to lean into and share. So look, thank you so much for your time. We will share your contact details in the notes that go along with the podcast episode when it gets released. And look forward to talking with you further in the future, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you for having me on today. It's been a pleasure.